Greetings, welcome to the channel. I'm Ready Set Go, and today we do a very quick ride on the fully electric Zero SRS. So if you're looking for a more comprehensive ride, do check out my Zero SRF review. I've done a much more comprehensive review where I've gone through all of the charging statistics, the options available to you, the power. This is a quick ride on the third version of the very similar platform. They both share, the SRF and the SRS, both share that 14.4 kilowatt hour powertrain. And I thought it'd be worth going for a quick ride on the third version and just see how the riding experience compares to the SRF. As you can see, there is no exhaust system on this thing, all the batteries here, the motor. It's a very well balanced design. It looks quite user friendly in terms of the riding position. The handlebars look nice and wide and upright, quite similar to perhaps a VFR Honda from the old days, much more sports touring orientated. But with that fairing, it's going to be quite interesting to see how much wind protection we get. Got nice LED headlights at the front there, fully adjustable Showas, Showa piggyback reservoir on the rear. Again, all the statistics and information is available on my Zero SRF review, so do check out that if you want to get into all the nitty gritty of exactly what this bike can do. Let's swing our leg over. The seat height is the same, 790 millimeters, which is fantastic for someone of my height. I'm 5'8" tall. I can get both feet to flat foot, which is really cool. It's always a welcomed surprise when I can fully flat foot both feet, especially on a big bike like this. When the kickstand is pushed up, the bike is ready to engage. We have a fully customizable TFT display in front of us. We're currently in sport mode, and all we're going to do, there's no clutch to worry about, there's no gear lever on the left boot to worry about. We're just going to pull the throttle and go. And it is, I'm going to say it's nearly silent. There's a very satisfying, electrified kind of whir that comes from these bikes. We've been having a bit of a press day today, and watching some of the bikes fly past the cameras was quite cool. It sounded a bit like from the movie Tron, if you remember that movie from the 80s. I know they did a remake, and but I've not watched the remake, but it looked very futuristic and cool. And so if you think, oh, the sound, it doesn't sound very cool, but I beg to differ, it sounds very futuristic and awesome, especially when you get a cluster of these electric bikes flying past. So even though this is the third version of the two street performance options by Zero, it's a very relaxed riding experience for sure. The bars are upright and tapered towards the rider. There's hardly any weight on the wrists whatsoever. The wing mirrors are really down low, giving you a good view of the road. I'm not used to those low down wing mirrors, but they do give you a great view. Yes, this is very relaxed, and I've said in my other video, my SRF review, that within a matter of seconds, minutes riding an electric vehicle, riding an electric motorcycle, you quickly forget that you're riding an electric bike. It's just so natural. The only thing that's lacking is sometimes when I'm going into corners, I usually change down gear and use a bit of engine braking. There isn't any of that to do. It's just straight up. There's no engine braking to do. There's no stomping down and using the gearbox to help aid in the braking. It's all done with the front and rear brakes. The front brakes on these bikes are very progressive and strong. The rear brake, I've commented in my SRF video that the rear brake is a bit lethargic. I do like to use the rear brake sometimes when if I'm going a bit hot into corners. I'll just feather the rear brake, and it would be nice to have a bit more bite in that, but the brakes are fantastic really. They do a grand job. We have 320mm front disc at the front with 4-pot calipers driven by a radial brake master cylinder, and a 230mm disc on the rear. Coming to a halt, it's absolutely silent. There's no clutch. You just pull the throttle and the bike effortlessly pulls forward. Just done a quick U-turn then, because I'm not quite familiar with these roads that I'm riding around, but one great thing about these bikes is the turning circle on the Zeros. They have a great turning circle, which means it's quite manoeuvrable at slow speeds. But yes, to summarise the important questions that you might be asking: how powerful, how fast does it go, how quickly can you charge it to full charge, and how far can you go on a full charge. You can rapid charge this bike up to 95% within an hour on a rapid charging station. You can also plug it in at home and have the battery charged within 4 hours. And that will cost you, here in the UK, that will probably cost you the equivalent of £2 to charge this bike to full. So if you're using this for commuting, going to work, doing the usual things that we do on bikes, you can charge this overnight like you would do your cell phone, your mobile phone, and you can have a full charge for the cost of £2, and the bike is ready to go. If you were to ride this bike just in the city doing stop starts, you're going to hit about 150 to 160 miles of range, which is quite an acceptable amount of range. That certainly goes way beyond my MT09 SP, which I can get about 120 miles or so out of it. If you're doing a cross riding of country roads and commuting, you're going to hit about 100-mile range limit. So 100 miles cross riding, again, which is quite comparable to my MT09, quite comparable to most internal combustion engined motorcycles. And then if you were to take the bike, this bike for example, in sport mode, have absolute mayhem on it on a weekend, you could probably ride for about 60 or so miles, 60 to 70 miles on a full charge while the bike is in sport mode, which is okay. I mean, you might be thinking, oh, 50 miles, 60 miles, Eddie, that's not a lot of distance for me to cover. But just think that after an hour or so of heavy riding, you're going to stop somewhere, you're going to grab a coffee, grab a bit of food perhaps, just talk with your friends maybe if you've gone out for a ride, and, talk about some of the riding that you've done. If you can find a rapid charging station, you can charge the bike up within an hour. It's a little bit longer than filling up with petrol at a petrol station, but it's almost an acceptable amount of time for how much it costs to run. This bike in particular, the SRF, which I recently reviewed, is about £21,000, and I do believe this is the same. I will put the price on screen for this bike just now. And yes, it is quite a significant initial amount of money. For that amount of money, you can buy some very exotic Ducatis and Kawasaki's for sure. But in the long run, if you were to use this bike every day, charging it at home, but over the course of time, this bike will pay for itself. Just rapidly up to speed, the power delivery on these bikes is absolutely instant. It is fantastic. Yeah, obviously the charging time, I've mentioned the charging time, and the ranges that you can get on these machines. What I haven't mentioned is the power output, which I talked about in my SRF video. This bike produces about 110 brake horsepower at about 5,000 RPM, which is that's a very acceptable amount of power. That's plenty to have lots of fun on and do all the things that you want to do. But where this bike shines is the torque. This 14.4 kilowatt-hour powertrain beneath me can generate 190 newton meters of torque, which is, when you consider that an MT10 from Yamaha will punch out about 100 newton meters of torque, this is 190. It's almost double the torque power that my MT09 produces. And when you put this thing into sport mode and push away from a standing start like this, the acceleration is absolutely rapid. It is phenomenal. It's phenomenal. Now, in the real world, you might be asking, what does that mean, Eddie? In the real world, if you were to take a Yamaha R1 and accelerate from 0 to 60, you'll get there in about 2.6 seconds if you can wield an R1 skillfully and safely. If you were to put this on a rolling road and accelerate as hard as possible, you could reach 0 to 60 in 1.6 seconds, which is absolutely rapid as anything. It's from a standing start up to motorway highway speeds, the acceleration on the Zero will leave other bikes standing without a doubt. Yes, you're not going to have the top end of some of those other bikes, especially my MT09. On my MT09, once you get to about 80, 90 miles an hour, the MT09 will still have plenty of gutso and push beyond that. But up until those motorway speeds, the Zero SRF and the SRS will launch you up to speed effortlessly and rapidly. And if you've not ridden an electric bike before, the lack of an engine, the lack of response from the bike in terms of the sound, it seems to make everything else go faster. The trees and the grass and everything starts whizzing by you in almost silent fashion. It's quite eerie at first, but you soon get used to it. And so is it fast enough? It is absolutely blindingly quick. It really is, and it will certainly put a huge smile on your face, no doubt about it at all. The big thing about electric motorcycles, they are becoming more prominent now. We've got Kawasaki working on a hybrid. We've got Triumph developing their own electric hyperbike at the moment. You probably might have seen the press releases on Triumph's new electric project. Zero have been producing electric bikes since 2009. They've got a decade of experience in pushing out production motorcycles, and they really have built this machine well. It feels sturdy, it feels solid, the suspension is fantastic, the brakes are good. I say the brakes are very good. They're not the best of brakes I've tried, but they are, good enough for what you want to do. I think if you were to take this on a racetrack and you obviously had a charging point to do all the sessions, you could probably find some limitations in the braking system, but for most of us, these will do the job. But the big thing with electric bikes is people becoming acclimatized to the range, the limitations of the electric technology. All I can say to that is there are numerous charging stations and places where you can plug in an electric vehicle in supermarkets, gas stations. They're becoming ever more popular because more and more people are driving and riding electric machinery. So if you're doing an extra long tour on one of these bikes, and you could easily tour on this bike, it's so comfortable. The wind blast is off, it's being deflected well over my head. There's a little bit of wind on the chest, but it's nothing, it's really nothing. It's super comfortable on this bike, and there's a great seat and a pillion seat to use. If you were to do an extra long touring trip, then you would obviously have to plan ahead, look for rapid charging stations or places that you could charge the bike for an hour or overnight if you're staying somewhere overnight. So again, with an electric bike like this, it's just becoming acclimatized to the electric technology and making sure that you plan ahead if you are going on unfamiliar roads. Super fun. It's like gliding on a cloud. It really is. It's such an effortless experience. I mean, the SRF I recently reviewed, that was obviously a naked street bike. There's lots of wind buffeting going on. As you increase in speed, the wind resistance really does remind you of how fast you're going. But on this bike, my goodness, it's so easy just to forget how fast you're going. And it is a very comfortable ride on the SRS, certainly with all the fairing and wind protection. It really does disguise how fast you're going, and with absolutely no engine noise at all, just a gentle whir of this 14.4 kilowatt hour powertrain. It really does, the speed can creep up on you very quickly. But yes, my full review of the SRF, which is the sister bike to this machine, just without all the fairing, has all the statistics and the charging times. I go into a bit more detail about the features and the spec of this machine, so do check that video out. There should be a link just above me there to watch that review. But in the meantime, let's just do a quick standing start just to illustrate how powerful and how quick off the line these Zero motorcycles are. It is quite a sensation. As I said, 190 newton meters of torque, which is pretty much active as of 1400 RPM. It is a blindingly quick bike. It's like a silent road ninja. Here we go. There's no clutch to worry about, no gear selector. You just pull the throttle, no gears to change either, which also adds to the ease of the acceleration of this bike. So here we go, the Zero SRS. Let's just accelerate. Just full on pulling it, and it launches you up to speed. Woo! That is fantastic. And with the fairing as well, you can kind of stick your head under the bubble and just carve through the wind and the elements. It really does make it an effortless experience. So to answer the questions about, is it fast enough? This bike, it packs a very electrifying punch. I do apologize for the pun, but it really is a huge punch coming from this machine. And if you do get the opportunity to swing your leg over and go for a quick ride, I think you'll be pleasantly surprised as to how easy and how exhilarating this bike is. I did mention in my SRF video that, you know, would I swap this bike for my MT09 SP right now? Probably not, because I absolutely love my MT09 SP. But I will say this: if the future of motorcycling is anything like this, and as we get more support and infrastructure to support electric motorcycles, and it makes it much more easier for us, then if this is the future of motorbiking, then we as, you know, bikers, we have nothing to worry about. Honestly, these bikes will put a huge smile on your face. But yes, I've been Ready, Set, Go. I hope you've enjoyed this ride. If you have enjoyed the video, please give a thumbs up to support the channel. Support is always appreciated. And if you are new around here, then please make sure to subscribe to see weekly future motorcycle news, reviews and content. I've been Ready, Set, Go. I hope you ride safe. Stay safe. See you next time.